Welcome to the launch of Poetry Month here on World Poetry Day 2021.
We want to start by acknowledging that we're beaming into you from beautiful Dharawal country. We acknowledge elders past and present, and that this is unceded land. We're on stolen land. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
We also want to acknowledge any First Nation poets watching and those that are part of this online event, and any First Nation peoples who are tuning in here today, and that the Red Room office itself is based on unceded Gadigal land. The Red Room office is actually based at Joynton Avenue, which is part of 107 Projects, and will actually be cross-streaming via the 107 page, so you can simultaneously tune in two screens at once if you like. Big shout out to 107. I don't know. I'm pulling
Thanks,
shapes.
Joynton Avenue.
Poetry never pull shapes. That's
So, what can you expect today?
what can we expect?
So this launch is going to be a buffet of poetry. You're going to experience a whole range of poetry. You'll hear from spoken word, page poetry. There's going to be comedy, lyrics.
Comedy and poetry, outrageous.
You'll also hear from a very special guest, Aviva Tuffield, who is a publisher with University of Queensland Press. They've also generously donated a book prize pack, a poetry prize pack.
Amazing titles.
Yeah. Some amazing titles that you can win. You'll also be hearing from Tamron Bennett, the Red Room Poetry Director, who will be launching Poem Forest, an amazing new initiative coming this year. And really exciting will
Drum
be
roll.
the announcement of the Red Room Fellowship 2021.
Yeah, so some of the amazing poetry.
Amazing.
Stick around, and giveaways going to be happening throughout. We'll be talking about Poetry Month quite a bit. It's the first attempt.
What is Poetry Month,
David? What is Poetry Month? Well, it is going to be a national platform that runs annually, that runs throughout August each year.
So this is the first
This is the inaugural one this year, and we're launching the initiative today. And Red Room has picked up the mantle to make sure we have a national platform like this to celebrate and amplify poetry and poets in all of its forms, to really take us to international standards like they have in the States and Canada.
In Aotearoa.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have a laureate. I got to say, I was actually thinking a great laureate would be Tony Abbott. I mean, he's been the Minister for Women and Indigenous Convoy. So, I mean, I think he's a multitasker. Anyway, we'll leave the Poet Laureate. There's rumbling there. But Poetry Month is what Red Room's going to really focus on, just to make sure that poetry is foregrounded as part of our national consciousness and the national conversation.
Yeah, really looking forward to everything that Poetry Month is going to bring. So Poetry Month will be happening all throughout August the 1st through to the 31st. So this is one of the most exciting debut collections to come out of Australia, absolutely, in recent years. It's called Drop Bear. You see that? And it's by Evelyn Lewin. Congratulations, Evelyn, on releasing such an incredible debut collection.
And UQP, who've put this book out, have kindly given us copies to give away, and we're going to do that by those that can interpret this book the most creatively or represent it best as an emoji or series of emojis in the comments. So get emojing away now.
I love this collection. Over to you, Evelyn.
Jingiwala, my name is Evelyn Lewin, and I'm coming to you from Burra country in the Darug Nation of Western Sydney. I'm going to be reading two poems today for you from my debut collection, Drop Bear, which is out now with the University of Queensland Press. The first poem I'm going to be reading is after the work of Sean Bonney, and it's called For Power, for Prayer, for Promise, for Peace. In the absence of power, say we will not forget. In the thoughts and prayers, say we will not settle for silence. To those who are coming, we promise we will not leave. If there will be no justice, we will not permit peace. The bloodied face of history is black. is bruise spilling from a mouth that won't swallow its own tongue. The face of history is a death mask smothered against beautiful black, is a bullet to the back, is a body to the wall, is holy, like howling to forever that the sky has another star to burn. The prayer for peace says second to send grief to soil, but first to take it back. Says there are some things too hallowed for forgetting, too much of history to forgive. The fury, the gun, the cell, the throat, nothing more holy, nothing more left to lose, no Lord, no glory, only the blood back to the earth, only mothers weeping to the street, only. The poem says, speak the aftermath of history. The wall says, fuck the police. The cry on the street says, say their names. Against every ceremony we trace to journey them home, say the word that will bind them here, until we might let them leave with justice. If you say forgiveness, let it be without a knee to a neck. And the second poem I'm going to read is called Boab. Leaving from empty rooms, we say, it shouldn't be so simple to drive between land and sea and arrive at something whole. The bracelet I've been weaving slides east to west on my dash while we watch an eagle swoop patterns of this country's muscle, not threatened by transferal or transformation, knowing what to take and where to put it. There's nothing this page can do for the light slant of a smoke-hazed sun, for the cockatoo sailing through sky while every road to home is burning. She isn't asking for a song, just water, seed, and branch, just rest. But we drive, wondering which of us will write this poem first. Thank you very much.
Recently, Pitt Street Press released an exciting debut collection by Phil Wilcox. It's called Beetle Prayer, and we're really excited that Phil is going to be reading a couple of poems from this exciting collection. So let's hear from the one of Australia's Poetry Slam winners. So over to you, Phil, and your wonderful spoken word.
Hey everyone, my name is Phil Wilcox and I'm pretty excited to be involved in this event with Red Room. I'll be reading a couple of poems from my new book, Beetle Prayer. It's with Pitt Street Poetry and I've got 2 poems to read. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge that I'll be reading on Wiradjuri land, and this is land that has never been ceded. The first poem I'm going to do is kind of like a creation style poem. It's the first poem of the book and it has a bit of Australiana, a bit of references to my childhood toys. It's called In the Sandpit. I saw my nephew play in the sandpit the other day. I saw him hock, spit, and mold dimension into an ocean of formless tunes. I saw a blue marble vanish in the black bag of a magician. I saw the trick, but every morning my nephew, he showed me how it was done. I saw a harpoon pierce a beanbag manatee. I saw it spew forth the beautiful Pleiades. I saw games of Tetris get interrupted and with it the creation of mountains. I saw the first handful of kindling be buried in the earth's core. I saw sunlight crystallize. I saw the plants roar. I saw volcanic bubblings of bicarb and vinegar. I saw meteorites punch oceans like defibrillators. I saw plastic dinosaurs fall and matchbox cars take their place. I saw Barbie and Ken fail the human race. I saw opposable digits, ones and zeros, 110010101011 lol 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 lol, the erratic chuckle of a child creator programming the world in Morse code. I saw an egg, a Kinder Surprise, and a Russian doll having an argument about existence. I saw my nephew in the sandpit the other day, playing in the dust, that accumulated from the shed skins of 1,000,000 gods before him. And my last poem I'm going to do is one of the last poems of the book. It's called Crumbs, and it's kind of based on the idea that I seem to only ever see adult pigeons. I've never seen a baby pigeon. I've seen so many pigeons, but I wonder, where are all the baby pigeons? So this is a little illustration from the book. It's done by Katie Hesp, very talented artist. This is a very short poem called Crumbs. I have a theory. All the pigeons we see are really the chicks. No one believes they've seen a baby pigeon, but actually we see them all the time. Shitting on statues, calculating the precise distance needed to avoid being kicked. And when the time comes up, they grow up, transforming into doves, cut-string kites, but more likely, old men feeding bread to baby birds. Again, this is just a theory. Red Room, thank you for having me. Thank you for watching. I'm Phil Wilcox. See you later. Bye-bye now.
Welcome back to the launch of Poetry Month on World Poetry Day. You're here with your hosts, Annie, David, and Cookie, who's just come in to co-host this session. She's, even dogs are excited about the fact there's going to be National Poetry Month. Look, there's going to be so many initiatives as part of this, and I suppose we really want people to understand that this is sort of a 5-year view of this, really. We are going to roll out some this year, but
This is really a foundational year. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a huge project to pull together, and we have been having contact with parts of the, poets, the community, the sector, and it really came from
Thank you
initial...
so much to everyone that we connected with in the lead up to Poetry Month as well.
And we'll continue to as well. Yeah. And we thought we'd just share some of the initiatives very briefly. They'll all be coming out before August or during August, like 30 and 30. There'll be a poem every day. And writing prompts every day, write a poem a day. There'll be poetry ambassadors, high profile figures advocating for poetry. We're also going to have a poetry calendar, which we have here. We can show you the calendar. It's not accessible yet, but this is the poetry calendar.
It's pretty exciting. I'm just going to hide it from Cookie because she might freak out a bit at the thing. So here's the Poetry Month calendar. Yeah, isn't it great, guys? Yep. And so we'll just flick to August and see what's happening in August. July, August. So
you can see August there.
Look how chockers it is.
There you go. There's a poet's schedule. So you can get a marker pen and start marking
you can put
in
your own. Yeah.
What would you like to? What are you going to organise? What do you want to do? What do you want to amplify during August? Maybe we should keep this as the calendar, or we could release an online calendar that people could submit details to, which will be open.
But what about this calendar?
I like the
maybe this could be part of the
small cats.
Is this a giveaway?
Cookie approves.
If you want to win this, just let me know and you can have it.
Yeah, if you have a cat-related poetry event, put it in the comments now, and we will post you this as your unofficial poetry.
Look at that thing, though.
Calendar. We're going to head over to the West now and hear from Caitlin Mailing, reading from her new collection, Fishwork, which is one of the main poetry titles UWA Publishing bringing out this year. This is Caitlin reading 2 poems from Fishwork.
Hi, my name's Caitlin Mailing. I'm going to be reading to you from my new collection, Fishwork, out through UWA Press. I'd first like to acknowledge that I'm reading to you on unceded Whadjuk Noongar land and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. The 2 poems I'm going to read to you today are from Fishwork, emerge from time spent living on Lizard Island Research Station with the scientists that do actual, not metaphorical research there. So I would like to thank those people for allowing me to tag along on all of their fieldwork. The first poem I'm going to read to you today is called Jose Describes a Cleaner Fish. At lunch, I ask, Jose, what does a cleaner fish look like to you? He says, they are slim, blue and yellow, and they dance. And at this he does too, hands by his chest, pointing out, bouncing foot to foot. See, I say, see. I ask Tiago what a cleaner fish looks like to him. Nothing, he says. I don't like them. This is what a cleaner fish of the species Labroides demediatus looks like to me. Like a pinky finger animated. Like an animated pinky someone has taken a blue marker to. Like a misshapen butterfly, like a cartoon fish shrunk down from the big screen. Like it's always saying hi and waving, I'm over here. Like it's never lonely. Like it has put on so much makeup to look as if it is never lonely. Like it's dancing in a non-concerned, over-the-shoulder come hither. Like if you bumped against it, it'd grind back on you. Like it's permanently hungry. Like it's always in need. And this second poem is called Recruitment. My husband flies to join me so we can be the two worst campers at science camp, where it seems everyone knows more about the ocean than it's possible for me to learn, even if I read all the pages collected neatly in the library binders. Tessa in the lab next door is working on calcified coralline algae. We spend a long time listening to her explain what she does before we learn that this isn't what floats and fronds or washes up in soft clumps, but is hard, a rock that grows and breathes and breathes. Today, she has been making it mate with the ruthlessness of a cult leader in a movie. First, it must be scrubbed clean, left alone overnight out of water in a dark room, before being dried, put back in the water and stored for 6 hours in direct sunlight. The cult movie would, of course, not be about a cult, but a metaphor for some sightless violence that occurs in the spaces between people, a concept. What pushes out the tetraspores in their 4x4, Tessa calls concepticles. She shows us the even dots of spores leading away from the pinpricks from which they have been ejected while we sit at sunset, G and tea and lime in hand. Why does she do it? My husband wants to know. As if there's always a purpose, and yet there isn't. Tessa studies the algae for the algae, can draw on the whiteboard with exactness their regular, straight, ancient cells. Scientists, says a chapter on scientific language, use metaphors to explain only what cannot be seen or what cannot be understood, except by those who spend their days as Tessa does, looking closely and moving intimately with parts unseen. The small details that accumulate into dust, a leaf, or even the reef, hard and protecting us all like a calcified shell about our warming membranes. Forgive me, I am a poet.
Hi, I'm Cameron Bennett. I'm the Artistic Director of Red Room Poetry. I'm coming to you from Darawal country, where the trees are talking, and the birds too. I give my respect and gratitude to elders, past, present, and also future, as well as First Nations people listening today, and thank them for their protection and their care for country. Caring for country is at the root of the project that we're launching with you today on World Poetry Day and also the International Day of Forests. The project is called Poem Forest. It's one close to me, growing up in a plant nursery and coming from a long line of women named after plants and trees. Poem Forest is created by Red Room Poetry in collaboration with the Australian Botanic Garden, Mount Annan. It's a new nature prize that invites students and their teachers to create poems about nature to breathe life back into the world that sustains us. For every poem that we receive, a tree will be planted at Mount Annan on the site of a critically endangered rainforest. As well as helping to heal habitats, Poem Forest is really about showing that our words have a tangible impact when it comes to climate action. This year, our judges for the prize are Bruce Pascoe, Holly Ringland, Dr. Kathy Offord, and also Solly Raphael, and we'll hear a poem from Solly in a little while. Our goal for Poem Forest is to help create 15,000 poems in the next 3 years, and those 15,000 poems will become 15,000 trees that will make the Poem Forest. So if you're a young person or you know a young writer or a teacher, this project is for you. We'd really love you to be a part of growing Poem Forests with us. There's over 5,000 prizes, $5,000 in prizes to win, including seeds and book packs, with thanks to our generous patron, John Fairfax AO, Copyright Agency, and Nagabala Books. Poem Forest opens today and is open until the 17th of September 2021. So jump on the Red Room Poetry website to find out more details. And for now, handing over to Solly, who's giving you a little taste of what Poem Forest is about, sharing a poem called White Box Rise about the white box eucalypt.
I would firstly like to acknowledge and express my respect for the Warrior people who have, for 40,000 years, taken care of the magnificent land where I reside today. As I walk among the trees on this white box rise, I realize that with all the days I have lived in my life, these trees have spent the same amount of days passing time as if it were no more than a butterfly landing on a leaf, or that same leaf detaching and drifting with the occasional breeze. To these trees, our calendar means nothing. There is no too early, no too late, no winning, no losing, no expectations, no comparisons. If we rose as White Box rise, purely from our motives and sheer desire for love and peace and happiness, would we then reach the canopy of enlightenment? Because beyond time, this moment is forever. Forever is now. And now, as I continue walking, I can feel my soul rise like a white box to a place where the illusion is lost. And I am present, whole, timeless.
The next reader we have is Elaine Chong, a well-known voice in Australian poetry. She's actually going to be reading from her first collection with UQP, A Thousand Crimson Blooms. And again, we have amazing giveaways of this title. And to win a copy of A Thousand Crimson Blooms, what we'd like you to do is to come up. We're going to award it to the most creative, wildest, expansive, extended metaphors that in some way use a flower. This is Elaine.
Hello, my name is Elaine Chong and I'm a Sydney poet. I live and work on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. This is Aboriginal land, always was and always will be. I'd like to read 3 poems today from my new book, 1,000 Crimson Blooms, from the University of Queensland Press. That's the book here. The first poem I'd like to read is Gazelle for my grandmother. I sing to you in the afternoons, grandmother. I see you wear the ring I gave you, grandmother. You have forgotten it was once mine. It fit my finger perfectly as it does yours, grandmother. I hand you a book of photographs and poems. You turn the pages restlessly. You never learned to read, grandmother. When and why were these pictures taken? Exactly where are your memories hidden, grandmother? The corridors are broken, the rooms are darkened. Yet I look at you and I behold you, grandmother. On the shelf, in your Chinese dress and wavy hair, you cradled your young son, not yet a grandmother. This morning, when I was absent, you told the world I, little Belle, love you best. My heart is yours, grandmother. The next poem I like to read is called My Mother Painting. My mother sends me an image of her painting for the week. I reply, I think the original will be hard to beat. She spends hours copying masterpieces, Hopper's Lighthouse, Smithson's Spiral, Da Vinci's Mona Lisa. When I got married, she gave us a likeness of me, aged 3, sitting along the 5-foot way outside our shop house on Victoria Street. She didn't like it. I couldn't get your face right. There's only a blur of beige with pale lips and dark eyes. My feet are suspended. I was swinging my legs. She's painted in the motorbike belonging to the man who welded metal bars. Fire sparking across the pavement, the iron-rich stench of hot steel. Inside the office, someone strokes me in the darkness when I hide under the table. The orange lamps of the altar burn like witnesses. Incense blankets the air. A finger is pressed across my lips. Later, in the kitchen, I suck on a lemon lolly and I imagine getting more. Bruises on my thighs. Take up the brush, Prussian blue, vermilion red. Yet the paint has dried. The painting is framed. My mother cannot craft in art what she never saw in life. The final poem I'd like to read today is called Furrow. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. Scotland like a dream, you wrote. Did it really happen? Yet today I listened to a writer speak about his book set on the Isle of Lewis. The producer had recorded the howling of the wind and the cries of the birds. The interviewer said the skin of the earth was thin in this place, the water nearly phosphorescent in the moonlight. I think of you, Eric, in the hunting lodge at Ewig. Sun sets over sands, shadows deepen into velvet. Are you speaking in Gaelic? The church pews are empty. There are no psalms being uttered in that hall. It was low tide when I crossed the stream and walked the face of the hill. The grass, a restless sea in the night. Why did you go back? I'm a loser, that's why. That final morning, I sang to you, my voice rising up the stair. Even the hung skulls listened. No one loses anything. We all leave so we can come home.
So, Dave, some people might think this isn't live.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of queries about, is live streaming actually happening? And
Is it live?
It's really good to see, Jen there right now.
Nice one, Jen.
Fantastic, and it's got to be at least one David in the comments as well. So, look, we can all see you there, and we
There
actually
you are.
we have proof that it is
Here's
live
the
stream.
evidence. Today's paper.
It's today's
See,
paper
look at that,
with
look at that.
I think the dates
Oh,
right there. You can
yeah.
see this is
There
live
you
streaming
go.
today.
Yep.
And if there was any other doubt that this is live,
This is from the,
we have the
cookie.
green from the green room.
Yeah.
We have the live stream rider.
There's the rider.
Please go and get a live stream rider yourself.
Yes.
Something like this. Make sure there's a balance between
Keep
all
it
the
balanced.
ways you can consume fruit.
Yeah.
That's the key thing here. And let's get back into this online live.
Live. It's so live.
Live streamed Poetry Month.
Live.
One of the best things of working with and for Red Room Poetry is the focus on commissioning new work from Australian poets, and got to say I'm particularly excited about this commission. It's the first in a 4-part series from someone who's a multidisciplinary artist, including a great poet and comedian, Vijay Rajan. And this series, the first, it's officially untitled. The first one is called What is Poem? And if this doesn't get you into poetry, nothing will.
Poem. This is a poem.
This is a poem.
This is a poem.
This is a poem. A poem. A poem. A poem.
A po. Oh. 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 Oh.
N. Poem.
Poem. Poem.
Yes. Yes, sure, okay. A. Poem. Poem. Po.
This is also.
Po. Oh. Yes, it's a yes. Poem. Poem.
Yes, it's a yes.
Every. Yes.
And I couldn't help but wonder, if everything was a poem, how do we even know what other things are? Are there other things in the world even? Am I a thing? Is this me speaking? If anyone can write everything and everything can be anyone, then how many blips are blops? What I mean is Mr. Big's blops? What I mean is, doesn't this way anarchy lie? How do we even know what is good and bad? And if we don't know that, if we can't create a system for that, then when I force people to tell me I'm their favourite person all the time, how can I even believe they mean it? We need standards in this world, don't we? Or else we're all just floating along doing whatever. And how win big prize and how get things done and how, like, even know stuff. And I know history and decentralize, yes, and the power structures and the taste is an issue. You must not police, like, no gatekeeping, that's bad. But hello, you're just going to write raccoons in the gate, they'll eat your cake. And then I couldn't help but think, oh God, someone show me the way. Mr. Big is dead. And I couldn't help but wonder, wouldn't it be nice if there was just someone who could set the limits of things so I know where I end?
The next poet we're going to be hearing from is Jaya Savage, who's beaming in from London for this very special reading. Jaya is going to be reading from his latest collection called Change Machine. For your chance to win a copy of Change Machine, just leave in the comments your favourite ever Australian poetry collection. As an example, here are some that you might wish to put in the comments. Over to you, Jaya.
Hello, it's Jaya Savage here, joining you from London. Thank you to the Red Room Company for inviting me to read a couple of poems for World Poetry Day. Obviously, being in London, I am not on Indigenous land, but I would like to acknowledge the Jundabari First People of Bribie Island, where I grew up in southeast Queensland. So the poems I'm going to read for you today, a couple of short ones from my most recent collection called Change Machine, published late last year with University of Queensland Press. And the reason that I'm here in Bushy Park, which is one of the largest royal parks in London, to the west of London, is because the first poem that I'm going to read for you today, I composed here mostly in my head a couple of years ago when I was walking through this park with my then infant son. And I had that realization that the human voice is largely a reconfiguration of the same stuff as the sky. Okay, infant speech bubble. Voice is peculiar weather, where language is organic sausages of air, processed cloud meat, piped into the rennet of a breath. And the simple truth is Papa's words are mere indentured wind, yoked mist. His every utterance sentences the ambling gust, the lifting fog, to life in the moist gulag of his lungs, where even grunts and groans are harnessed breezes, and all his song is sky repurposed, and the ruins of heaven are forever rewoven. So watch your language, buddy, up with rainbows. Ready. And the second poem that I'm going to read for you today is a bit darker. It's called Ladybugs. Your sister etches rain into her skin. She calibrates the weight of every nick and then experiments with aquatint to keep her precious hyphens out of sight. A paperclip can be a javelin. The scissors beckon her with open arms. Yet mostly she prefers the safety pin she keeps beside the ironed uniforms. She coaxes ladybugs into the light from some dark garden thriving in her vein, as though she were cajoling razor clams the way her aunties taught her at Yeppoon. They hatch like fire opals from a vault. They drip like crimson sequins from a gown. You know there is a language in the welt that lifts a pinkish lip to greet each cut, though nobody can read the cuneiform she chisels in the tablet of her pelt. The primitive calligraphy won't scan. But if you had to parse the hailstorm, you'd say it was her prep for an exam on how to use her skin to hoard the rain and navigate a blazing hinterland without a map, a mother, or a phone.
Poetry Month is as much about poetry as it is about Australian publishers, and we're really fortunate that Aviva Tuffield, the University of Queensland Press publisher, agreed to answer some interesting questions that we proposed to her. Aviva is going to answer them now, and we're really grateful that you took the time to do so, Aviva. Thanks so much.
Firstly, I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you today from the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation, and to pay my respects to elders past and present, and recognise a continuous connection to country and culture. I'm Aviva Tuffield, and I'm very excited about UQP's poetry list for 2021. First up is the just published Evelyn Lewin with her fiercely brilliant Drop Bear, in which Evelyn interrogates the colonial project and calls out its bullshit on a political and personal level. There is a particular focus on Australiana and its tropes and iconography, and on identifying and ridiculing its hypocrisy. Then we have Elaine Chong's latest collection, 1,000 Crimson Blooms, which is her best yet. Full of sensuous imagery and complex emotions, it deals with such themes as mother-daughter relationships and the challenges of infertility. In June, we have Tony Burch's stunning poetry collection, Whisper Songs, which traverses the highly personal and the deeply political and their overlaps. Some of these poems are the closest thing Tony will ever come to writing a memoir. He also challenges the past to speak up by interrogating the historical archive, including documents from his own family history. In July, I'm thrilled to be publishing Maria Takalanda's latest collection, which is as mercurial as it is devastating. Trigger warning is not for the faint-hearted, but neither are the subjects it deals with, among which are domestic violence and environmental catastrophe. And last, but certainly not least, in September, we had the 2020 winner of the David Yonarpon Award, Jazz Money's exceptional How to Make a Basket, which has a remarkable cover by Larrakia artist Jenna Lee, who also designed Drop Bears. How to Make a Basket is by turns scathing, funny, and lyrical. Jazz uses her poetry as an extension of protest against the violence of the colonial state and as a celebration of Black and queer love. Now to answer some questions I've been given. Firstly, what can an emerging early career poet do to improve the chances of their manuscript being accepted? I tell all writers, whether poets, novelists, or non-fiction authors, that the best way to get a publisher's attention is to get your work out there. So to enter competitions, submit poems to literary journals, apply for fellowships and mentorships. If you win, get shortlisted or published, your work will be noticed. And also you'll have something to add to your writing CV. You never know how or where a publisher might discover your work. And even if you don't win, one of the judging panel might have loved your work and may mention it to a publisher, such as me. Next question. If you could hear one poem before you go to sleep at night, what poem would that be? Well, recently, I have been hearing one poem almost nightly, as my youngest child in Year 8 has had to memorise and analyse a poem from a selection the school provided for an end-of-term assignment, and she chose Call a Spade by the incomparable Ellen van Neerven. In fact, that is the perfect poem to reflect on each night, especially for me as a first-generation migrant to this colonised and unceded continent where I've experienced so many privileges, especially those of whiteness. Next question. Do you think it's advantageous to have a collection that has thematic links? I think almost all poets tend to have a certain number of preoccupations that flow through their work. So I would argue that most collections do have thematic links. I think it's advantageous to divide collections into sections if there are clearly linked poems, but it's not my first priority when considering publishing a work. In fact, I might be more concerned if a collection was too single-minded. Final question. Do you think poetry collections should be eligible for broader writing awards such as the Stella Prize? Full disclosure, I was one of the co-founders of the Stella, so I actually was one of the people who decided the genres that were included and to limit it to adult fiction, non-fiction, and YA. However, I clearly recall Aboriginal writer and academic Amberlynn Quay-Molina discussing this with me at the time and pointing out that this was a white Western delineation of genres and would exclude and disadvantage writers from certain backgrounds and cultural traditions. In particular, in terms of First Nations writers, Amberlynn advocated for picture books and books with a substantial number of images to be eligible. Subsequently, many other writers, often from non-white backgrounds, have pointed out the prominence and role of poetry in their cultural traditions, not least as a mode of protest and writing back. So speaking purely about the Stella Prize, if I was asked now, I would definitely be advocating for a broader range of genres to be eligible, including poetry, not least so that this brilliant book by a First Nations non-binary writer could have been considered for this year's prize. And that's where I'll end and say thank you for listening.
As part of Poetry Month, we're going to have a number of signature programs, and one of those is going to be Middle of the Air, which is going to explore the intersection between poetry and song twofold. It's going to have us commissioning musicians to do an adaptation or interpretation of a poem as song, and we're also going to have a national competition where we engage a contemporary Australian musician to interpret a poem submitted by anyone. Anyone can submit anyone can submit a poem, you out there, to be interpreted as song as well. That's going to be opening soon, so please join the Red Room mailing list and keep an eye on the Red Room website.
And the website's the best place to.
Yeah, if you go to Poetry Month, a lot of these initiatives like Middle of the Air will start appearing between now and August and across August itself. Ben Salter is one of this country's best, least known, best musician songwriters that we have. And this next piece is him doing an adaptation of an Uncle Herb Wharton poem called Tracks. It's a live recording. Please enjoy Ben Salter.
Thank you, Ben.
This is Tracks.
Tracks upon the ground, tracks upon the sky, out upon the ocean, you sometimes see the tracks of ships. Since dawning of the dream time, greatest bushman in the world did not follow roads or maps. Always they looked down to read and follow track. No history books did they read. Land told all to people. History, it was written on the land. The reading told in track. As dream time began, rainbow snakes slide round and round. Across the land it slid, flicked its tail, rocks piled up, hollows where it rested, waters where it sleeps, legends from the dream time. The story told in track. Embedded in the rock, tracks 1,000,000 years old. Men of science now read a message in these tracks. A bushman's life I've led, always following track. A cold, clear, wintry morning, tracking straying horses down. Pausing for a moment, looking up into the sky, 30,000 feet above my head. A clear white vapor trail, jetliner making tracks across the sky. That night, from comfort of my swag, I track satellite from horizon to horizon. Men of science now leave their tracks in the sky, even on the moon. Man has left his track. Outward into space. Among the planets, space probes travel, tracked upon a screen. Australia's Dreamtime history, not written in a book. Upon the earth it's written, the story told in tracks.
Next up, we're hearing from Luca Lesson.
Luca.
Amazing spoken word artist who will be reading from his work in progress, which is titled Agape and Other Kinds of Love.
Here's Luca.
A scene from Agape and Other Kinds of Love. Erotas. The primordial gods, chaos and cosmos, are watching over the scene of a riot kicking off in the suburb of Exarchia, Athens, December 6, 2015. Sophia takes Pavlos' hand and leads him through the back streets away from the square, into a stinking alleyway, up some rickety stairs and into her apartment building. And for the first time in their lifetimes together, Erotas starts to take a hold. Two palms grow hot like steel to flint. Two hands touch and sparks start to glint. She turns the door handle and leads him in. He closes his eyes to let a dream begin. And outside the sirens call to the apartment, screaming in the gutters, whining in the darkness. An explosion hits 3 blocks away and it hums like a reverberating prayer. The city wakes up and calls the fire brigades as she runs her hands through his hair. Their hearts start to burn as they turn in their feelings, not thinking of the gas bottles in the bottom of the building, or the flames catching the foundations, or the water pipes getting hot. Her bedroom will be ablaze, but for now, their eyes are locked. She's on top, he's on top, she's on top. She peels off the last layer, double checks the door is locked. He holds her spine as she breathes him in. He admires her lines and the desires they bring. Their faces are both exactly kind of grimaces and grins. Their souls start to cross over from the limits of their skins. Level 1 catches fire. A window cracks, ice melts off the roof and it drips like wax. They didn't notice when the floorboards shook, or the first waves of smoke, or the falling books, or the fire that flickered, cause their eyes did the same. He spoke her name like a mantra, on his tongue was a flame. He opened up, forgot where he was. She closed her eyes and got lost with the gods. And outside, another Molotov lands on the pavement. A cop car tries to make its way through the mazes. A kid in a tracksuit and full balaclava holds his crutch to police in their full riot armor. Bottles fly as she bites on his shoulder. Her hair stuck with sweat and his touch feels older and known, like home, like a wayward soldier returned after years but still knows how to hold her. She touched him way better than he's ever touched himself. Sex is a language unwritten but eternally felt. She whispers, I guess you really are a poet since you speak without speaking, huh? He whispers, I guess you really are a pilgrim since you seek without seeking. She grabs the nape of his neck as the rhythm increases, parallel beats of a heart. Then one breath collapses the past. They rise to completion as the room falls to pieces. How beautiful to fall in love together as the world falls apart. They catch their breath, stare out the window as the room fills with smoke. Though neither is suicidal or thinks it's a joke, they both thought of dying in that moment. What a fucking great time to go. He says it's time to go. They put back on their clothes, break out the window, climb down the outside fire escape to the road. The steel balustrade was hot, but they hardly noticed. The tear gas already makes it hard to focus. Petrol bombs bang against a bus on the block, and it burns like the sun right in front of the cops.
Another really exciting signature program that I'm very proud to share with you is called Fair Trade. Fair Trade came about out of what I saw as a quiet urgency that is happening around First Nations communities around the world. And this urgency really rose up throughout COVID-19 when First Nations communities more and more relied on digital communications to connect with each other. So rather than using waka or canoe to get across the oceans, we turned to the internet and connected with our whānau, our communities across the globe. And so Fair Trade is about collaboration. It's about poetic collaboration, poetic weavings. And I'm honoured to let you know that the first pairing of poets is the highly esteemed, the incredible US Poet Laureate, the current US Poet Laureate. Her name is Joy Harjo. Joy Harjo is the first Indigenous poet from the US to be awarded this incredible prize. And Joy will be, or has partnered with someone who is also a remarkable Australian, Indigenous Australian poet, and her name is Ali Cobby-Eckermann. Joy and Ali have a sisterly bond. They are kin, and I've been honoured to be around both of them in the past, particularly through festivals and other projects. So Fair Trade and Joy and Ali's collaboration here is really a culmination of their spirit and their bond, their trust, their resilience, and their love for each other. So I'm really honoured to be sharing Fair Trade with you. And please keep an eye out on the website. Actually, it'll be announced as we get closer and closer to Poetry Month in August. There'll be 5 other pairings of incredible First Nations poets. So first up, please do sit back and take in this incredible poem. So many thanks to Joy and Ali for taking the time to create this beautiful weave.
Ali, sister, I lay my body down. My mind is not slow for sleep. It has no place to rest. Not in this country, this government, this time of the heavy turning earth. An eternity can exist in a moment, an hour, or in the song life of the humble sparrows who mutter as they dream in the tree that breaks through concrete and sorrow. 5 trains cross the city. The man chased by demons screams out. He roams this area day and night. His bad dreams never sleep. They beg our ears for mercy. A ruined goddess dressed in streetlight begs a ghost for change. She wears a crown of cigarette smoke. Tulsa is the corrupted form of our name for town or old town, Tallahassee or Tallahassee. Down the street, the ashes of the fires we left behind in the forced march were rekindled beneath the council oak tree. It is still there, our story, and the tree who holds it in place, and the memory of fire. The thieving never ends, and now the pandemic haunts us Indians, takes us, especially those of us who are older. In our Muskogee culture, elder is respected. In the swallowing everything up culture, we are death watch. We now stand closer to the language of stones, the useful streams joining our lands together as we prepare for return to the scarlet edge dreaming us. This time is when we are nourishment to the coming up ones. Those viral killers approach my mind to plant fear. They act familiar, shake hands, make treaties. They sit down without being invited. They destroy everything. We recognize them as part of the great disturbance. I give my mind the task of holding the door open for the ancestors, the guardians, the winds. When I sing, there is no way in for evil. Once in the middle of the country, in the early part of my life, I drove my children through the night in our small pickup truck back from winter break in Tulsa, north to my education, to my way out. We stopped for gas. Cold winds had blown and blasted us for hours. Snow was now covering us. My son jumped out to clean the windshield. My baby girl stood up and blinked sleep in her eyes. Yawning, she said, "I was just dreaming someone somewhere else. And I wonder if someone somewhere else was dreaming us." Then she went back under the sleep blanket and drifted to where she had come to us from, to the origin place of poetry, of the eternal road between your people and mine, between you and me. We filled up, kept driving through the darkness. My girl became a dreamer with her beadwork. Her designs emerge from father, mother, ancestor patterns as her children and grandchildren play around her. And my son labors on the railroad, always moving, leaping agile to the next thought on the tracks of living. He worked on each of these trains running through this city, just yards from this room, as they carry oil, coal, and other extractions from beloved earth, as his daughter takes the path of plant and animal knowledge. Here we are, on the verge of shift. We lost 3 culture carriers within days. Others are on ventilators, turning toward the next sacred story. I find myself in the night, which is your next day, reaching through eternal wonder, through the minefield of prayers, to you. Everything is a prayer, driving, singing, crying, falling down, getting back up, the small animals that we meet on the road, the trees, the being, the beingness. You are a prayer, my sister. Let us sew dresses, so we look the same as we walk toward the sun. We will make them together of grasses and winds. We will make them together of grasses and winds we find along the river of time, made of smooth stone. For Ali Kobe Eckerman.
For Julie Harjo. Dear sister, there are no trains here. The railway lines have been removed, the station house left in disrepair. I wait by the broken platform for my son's return. There is no sight of him. The view is tragic. Thousands of trees were demolished to build the railroad. Now barely a tree survives. Old trees hold memories and have been destroyed. No truthful retelling of first contact is encouraged here. Miles of empty railway corridors were resown with native seeds. The regeneration of saplings offer a haven to native species of animals and birds. Of course, I am excluded. There is no returning. There is no return. In this place, my truth turns lonely. I hear my people's urgency on a crying wind. My grandmother reminds me to walk. I walk and walk and walk. My footsteps feel barren behind me. My grandmother walks beside me. I feel hope dying on my breath. My mother walks behind me. My mother reminds me to not waste time. Inside the horizon, a thin ribbon of trees is hidden. This is the secret route to the river. Many girth trees are the welcome here. I rest in the comfort of memory shadows. My daughter is here. She reminds me to smile. Her smile is the laughter of birds. A tragic view is repairing. The wind is singing now. I sit where the sedge grass grows, where the water slows. I remember to dream. My dreams weave a dress for my sister. It is the same as mine. One day we will meet again. I know this now. This river is filled with the promise of time. Sister, do you remember the secrets we shared? I have guarded mine since birth, my inheritance from my ancestors. A story tree grows inside me and can only be viewed in my eyes. I remember that day you held my gaze. I remember the day I held yours. Now everything is secretive for survival. Ask the birds, your sacred bird and mine. Outside is a desert land barren of trees. Empty roads crisscross where the trains once ran. Animals lie dead alongside the roadside. We search for the living. Yet it is the sacrifice of us for as far as the eye can see. We can see the truth. It is the method of governments to halt the arrival of prayer. Yet your prayer arrives through the silence of dismay, dropped from the talon of an eagle's claw, winged from your window to mine, that has flown from your heart. Joy, it is everything I need.
Hi again, everyone. I get the privilege of announcing our Red Room Poetry Fellow for 2021. Our fifth fellow follows in the footsteps of Ali Cobby Ackerman, Candy Royale, Janine Ling, and Michelle Carl. Our fellowship is an opportunity to give a period of creative development, financial support, a residency at Bundanon Trust, and a public platform for sharing poems. This year we received a record number of applications, and we want to thank everyone who took the time to shape and carefully consider their proposal, putting that forward to our judging panel for consideration. I also really want to thank and congratulate all our shortlisted poets, Trisha Dearborn, Benjamin Dodds, Anne Elvey, Toby Fitch, Jill Jones, M. Koenig, Scott Patrick Mitchell, Sarah Sele, Brenda Saunders, and Ellen Van Nerven. Given the calibre and quality of our shortlisted poets and also the projects put forward, we're really pleased to be able to offer a poetic commission linked to each of your projects and also a performance opportunity in Poetry Month in August 2021. And now it is time to announce our fellow for 2021. We are delighted to award this year's fellowship to Ellen Van Nerven. Ellen's going to share more about their project. Congratulations on behalf of all of us, Ellen.
Jingari, I'm Unturable Dargan, and I'm Mullenjali. Thank you, Red Room Company. Thank you to the judging panel for this amazing opportunity. I feel honoured and privileged to be the 5th recipient of this fellowship. The work that's been selected is called Queensland, with a KW, Sovereign Bodies and the Colonial Nation State. And it's about us as queer First Nations people. Our traditional country does sit within the parameters of what is now called Queensland, but our sovereignty was never ceded. For thousands of years pre-invasion, our families lived and thrived here, and despite colonial neoliberal disruption, we continue to practice a connection to Dargan. It's about our gender diversity before the ships came, about listening deeply to Dargan and stories that have been silenced. This project is an ode to what to some are small protests and small details, but to me are revolutions. I'm really looking forward to the residency in July on Wadi Wadi Yuin country. I'm really looking forward to immersing myself in the writing, running workshops with community, and presenting the poetry that comes out of this time with you all in the future. Thank you.
Huge! Congratulations!
Well done! Congratulations
to Ellen here in this live streamed event.
Live.
They fully deserve it, as did all the shortlisted poets, but huge congratulations.
Really well done, Ellen.
Ellen becoming the Red Room 2021 Fellow. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Poetry Month launch on World Poetry Day. Please check out the website and join the mailing list. Please fill out the survey.
Oh yeah, please fill out the survey.
Yeah,
we're going to pop it in the comments.
It's a bit of a bum, that survey always, isn't it? But please, it does help us in terms of feedback.
Sorry, Cookie.
And
thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for tuning in for World Poetry Day and Poetry Month. August is just around the corner. We will see you there very soon. And also a brief, but always, thank you to the Australia Council of the Arts and Create New South Wales for giving us the foundation to be able, for Red Room, to be able to pursue an initiative the size of Poetry Month. Cookie's coming back in.
Thank you from all of us.
Have a beautiful afternoon.
Thank you
it's
from
currently
Red Room Poetry.
4:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Bye. Lucky day.